All right. Well, it's in the later days of December here. It's actually I won't say too unseasonably warm, but it's a warmer December day. It's been raining on and off here today. We are still about a couple weeks, a little under 2 weeks away from the SAG nominations coming out. But I wanted to go ahead and give some updated thoughts, a few changes here and there I've made to the SAG predictions and everything. And I've also over the Christmas break here, at least I had some time on Christmas Eve, so I watched two of our bigger Oscar contenders. So I'm feeling a little better now. I'm feeling like, okay, I'm not just guessing at this movie and that movie at least for everything. So we'll go ahead. I'll try to keep my thoughts kind of brief on those, not 30 minutes each or anything, of course. But we'll go ahead and get started here. So I think we'll start with the kind of work our way up to ensemble for nominees here at SAG. Starting with the stunt ensemble, my five here that I have in are, and this is just in order I think of most likely to least likely, Dune Part 2, Deadpool and Wolverine, Gladiator 2, Furiosa, Mad Max Saga, and for that fifth weird pick, I'm going to actually go right now, but I could be tempted to change later. I'm going to go Emilia Perez actually for that fifth pick, and hear me out on that. So, starting at the top there, Dune Part 2, pretty obvious. It's a Best Picture contender. They do like to try to get one or two of those in for stunts, particularly one of their later on ensemble nominees. And while Dune Part 2 does have a big ensemble, it's not a big favorite here at SAG. I don't think it's really a movie that, even though it came out early, which traditionally SAG has liked their earlier stuff than their later stuff. I don't know. I just feel like this is, a solid bet and everything. The first Dune, as I recall, did get in for stunt ensemble as well. So that one makes sense. Deadpool and Wolverine, this is an obvious two-pick here. This might actually end up overtaking Dune Part 2, and it might end up winning the category in February. Wouldn't be shocking at all, because they love superhero movies here. And this is obviously the biggest superhero film of the year. It's the one with some pretty obvious stunt work in it and everything. So I think that's a pretty much a lock in this category. Gladiator 2, I'll also say it feels pretty locked up to me as well. Obviously, being a later release, does, traditionally those action releases that are later, they do sometimes help at SAG. Traditionally they like earlier stuff, but it doesn't always mean that you're done. When I say earlier stuff, usually it's like those, and this is going back a few years now before COVID, they used to do their nominations like mid-December, if not like, roughly the end of the second week of December. So it would be sometimes a little early. So the later releases, I remember like The Post, I remember missing big at SAG. And like some of those later December releases, if they don't screen heavily enough in advance, where enough SAG voting members get a chance to get to see it, some of those can miss in some key categories. Gladiator 2, though, I think feels pretty good. And SAG has kind of moved their timetable back now to in this case, it's going to be still early January. I think January 8th is the date I saw. So should be more than enough time to see some of the Christmas releases here. Like, I don't think it'll get much, but like Nosferatu came out over Christmas here. Actually made a good bank at the box office so far. I'm kind of surprised by that. Or Complete Unknown, obviously, which I was actually, we were kind of on the fence. Some family members and I were actually going to try to go see that Christmas Day, but plans kind of fell through, so I didn't quite get to that one, but I'm sure I'll see that one here in the coming weeks and everything. Anyways, but yeah, back to this. Gladiator 2, though, I think, it's pretty solidly in. If the stunt ensemble category had been around for like the first Gladiator over 20 years ago, nearly 25 years ago, I think that would have been a shoo-in that year as well. Furiosa, Mad Max Saga, I think is another easier pick here, with more female-centered characters in that film. The stunt ensemble category here, they do kind of sometimes like those female-led films. Both the Wonder Woman films have won this category, as an example. So, even though that one, and yes, it was an early release, it wasn't a huge box office hit, but Furiosa has kind of stuck around a little bit here and there, getting some nods, throughout some of the awards bodies and stuff at different critics groups, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of hung around, even though it wasn't a huge hit like the first, or I shouldn't say first, the previous of the Mad Max films. This is kind of the second one of the modern day, since they, there's a 30-year gap between Beyond Thunderdome and Fury Road. So it's that. And then again, they usually like to go with one of their nominees in ensemble here for stunts, one that kind of leans toward it. So like Irishman got in, as I recall, in 2019. Didn't Joker get in as well or something like that? Like sometimes they go with some of those crazy, ones that are up for ensemble or potentially Best Picture nods. So Amelia Perez, I'm picking this one though, for a couple reasons. Number one, there is, when you get into the third act, without getting into too much spoiler territory, there is a couple of sequences that do kind of involve some, violence and stuff and cartel stuff. So that part I kind of thought of. And then also, I don't traditionally think of like choreography association with stunts, like dancers and stuff, but there are dancers. There are, some stuff with some of the musical numbers in Amelia Perez. So I can see the voters in that category kind of leaning that way and everything, but it's gonna be, that one's gonna be close and everything. I've got 5 other competitors that could get in as nominees. The first one I'll say is Venom: The Last Dance, which is an October release, but again, it's another superhero movie. They traditionally do like superhero movies here, so that one I think is close. Twisters, even though a lot of CGI in that one, just because it is kind of a bigger action movie, came out over the summer and everything, that could sneak its way in. Blitz, I would actually not be too shocked if Blitz does get in, but even though that one has been really struggling at the early televised awards here, I again say wait for the Brits. The Brits, I think, are going to come in heavy on Blitz, and if they don't, then that movie is definitely sunk. But if they do, look out for that one to potentially start a comeback bid to at least get, maybe a couple handful of nominations here and there. Kraven the Hunter is another later release, superhero-based property and everything with Sony and Marvel. So even though it's not making a terrible splash at the box office or anything, it is a later release. All the trailers and stuff do show that there is some choreography going on with some of its stunt material and everything. So if they're really struggling for that 5th slot, I can see an avenue where that gets in, but we'll see. And then one other potential ensemble nominee that could also get in for stunts, and I haven't quite seen it yet. I know I'm probably one of the last people to see it, but Wicked. I don't, again, right off the top, as a musical and stuff too, I don't see it as an easy get to get those stunts, in there and stuff. And I would argue Amelia Perez is also ahead of it in like the Best Picture race, for example. I still think Wicked is one of those weird choices that they could just go with, also because of the popularity of the film. So I'll name drop it here in case it really does surprise us on SAG nominations morning. Okay, so getting into the nominees here for the categories, individual acting categories, and then we'll end, of course, with ensemble. In the supporting actress category, my 5 here, for the moment, lot could change. I've got Zoe Saldana for Amelia Perez, Felicity Jones for The Brutalist, Isabella Rossellini Conclave, Margaret Qualley for The Substance, and Selena Gomez for Amelia Perez. And again, this has turned into really the toughest category to predict this year. Because like I've said it a couple times, I'm going to keep saying it, there's going to be a lot of hearts broken on Oscar nominations morning for this pack of women here for these 5. And Ariana Grande, and Danielle Deadwyler, and Aunjanue Ellis-Taylor, possibly Saoirse Ronan, possibly Monica Barbaro. I'm trying to think who else is kind of in the runnings here. But yeah, that's already 10, so it's like, oh boy. Yeah, now with this one, I mean, it feels like Zoe has kind of had something of a jump on this race since the piano lesson and Danielle Deadwyler's campaign kind of softened a little bit. Now, I am a little nervous about leaving her out here because she does feel like, one, she missed the Globe, got in at Critics' Choice. Netflix, is going to broadcast the Screen Actors Guild Awards again this year. So this being a Netflix product, definitely we could see that rub off on the voters, in the nominating committee here and stuff, and Danielle could get in. I have to remind myself here. I believe for her last one, Till, I believe she got in for that at SAG. Did she not? Or am I misremembering that? Let's see here. Because I remember it missed a couple places. But I thought SAG she got in for. Yes, she did. She was not a nominee at SAG. So that has me a little nervous as well. But I looked at my list again. I'm like, I'm not sure who to bump to put her in, though. Same goes with Ariana Grande. Again, I have to see the movie. I just, on the surface, don't fucking understand how she gets in. I just, again, just on the surface. Now, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but it's like, I just don't get it. I just don't see how she's an Oscar contender, just based off of trailers and having seen the stage play a couple times. It's like, I don't really, it's not like an Oscar role, you know? It's like, sure, I can get nominated, you know, at the Tonys and stuff for, you know, supporting actress or whatever, or sometimes lead actress, depending on how it's billed at the shows. But I don't know. That's in a different, you know, context and stuff, because of the musical delegation there at Tonys and stuff. I just, having that, you know, going in cold, I just don't really understand the hubbub about this. Otherwise, yeah, with Nickel Boys, I don't think Nickel Boys is going to be like a huge popular thing here at SAG. Like, I don't see it as a huge threat in ensemble or anything. Saoirse's been nominated a few times at SAG. She's also missed a couple times at SAG, so it's not impossible for her to miss here as well. And again, Blitz, even though it is a streaming movie and it did come out pretty early, it, again, just in the States here, it just really has not made much of an impact. So I feel comfortable leaving her off for now. As far as the inclusion stuff here, yeah, Margaret Qualley has made both Critics' Choice and the Golden Globes. Substance, again, relatively early release. It was streaming relatively early, so I think that's where a lot of people caught it. Myself not included just yet, but again, that one, hopefully in the next few weeks here, I'll have a little bit more time and I'll be able to get caught up on a few of these movies that I've missed. And then, yeah, with Selena Gomez, even though she missed at Critics' Choice with 6 slots, which feels, you know, pretty big and everything, she did get into the Globes, where I feared she would miss, because that, and even though that one also has 6 slots now, that one, because of the TV awards and stuff, I was afraid she would miss. I don't know. And I think Emilia Perez also being part of Netflix and everything, I don't know. I think Emilia Perez is also going to go over well with the acting branch. In general, when we get to the Academy Awards and SAG, even though it's not obviously just actors, it's a lot of other people. I think with her name recognition and everything and all that, I think that's enough to get her in. But yeah, and speaking of Isabella Rossellini, Conclave is one of the films I did see, so I'll try to sneak in some thoughts here. Conclave, it was pretty good. It wasn't like, you know, a mind-blowing film. It was while you're watching it, you are very entertained, though. I do have, probably my biggest complaint about the film, though, is because the whole thing is about, obviously, a conclave of bishops. I'm not Catholic. I don't really, I learned a lot watching this. I didn't know a lot going into this about the whole procedural thing of getting the new pope elected and everything, but the conclave of bishops, or whatever the hell, you know, once that kind of gets started, there's a kind of a deal, you know, an old screenplay trick that comes in. As soon as they did that, I'm like, well, we know who's going to get elected now. So it's like, there's no suspense whatsoever, even though the movie is, you know, I don't want to say too dragged out, but it's, you know, at 2 hours, you don't feel like it's, you know, leading up to a big, you know, suspenseful conclusion as far as who gets elected pope. It feels, you know, once they use that trick and just the way it's shot and the way it's edited and the way the actor is staged and everything, you just know, if you're a seasoned moviegoer, you kind of know who's going to get that spot. It's just about, how do we get there? And ultimately, I think where this movie could have fallen apart with that, I think where the movie succeeds and where it gets over that is because the way to get there is pretty entertaining. And it's really headlined by some very nice performances. Ralph Fiennes in particular gets, within the first half hour, 45 minutes, he gets quite a few good scenes. One particular good speech he gives right before, I'm trying to remember now, was it the first round? Yeah, well, it's before the first round of voting, but I think it's before a few other things happen. And Ralph Fiennes in particular gives this really, even though it's a kind of quieter moment and stuff, he gives a pretty impassioned plea to his bishops about who to vote for and stuff, because he has a very clear idea of which bishop is going to get elected to be pope and everything. And yeah, that part I thought was excellent. Tucci in the supporting role, I thought, you know, a little underplayed in some ways in his character and stuff. Like, he's not a big shouting character and stuff. I've been, you know, kind of on the lam for him to get in for supporting actor, even though he's been missing everywhere. And I still feel when we get to the supporting actor category, I'll probably bring him up a couple times here while we're talking about it. But yeah, I still thought he was still pretty good in the movie. Isabella Rossellini, she's not in the movie very much. I'd be shocked if it was more than 10 minutes of screen time total. She gets a couple, noticeable moments, of course. And even though she's not, a previous nominee or anything, I think it's the movie is being seen. She is a standout character. She's one of the few female characters. It very much feels like a Rachel McAdams in Spotlight type of deal, where she might miss a spot here or there. I actually would not be shocked if she misses out here at SAG, but I've got her in for now. I could bump her in favor of Danielle, or maybe in favor of Ariana Grande once I see the movie and stuff, and I figure out what the hell is going on with that performance. But no. In the meantime, here, yeah, I think it's a good enough role and everything. Like, the performance is just fine. It's just there's not a lot to work with there. But being one of the few female characters of importance in the film and stuff, I think does help her out. Let's see. I'm trying to think here. Otherwise, I mean, yeah, it's still a good movie and everything. But again, just getting there and the fact, every 15, 20 minutes or so, there's this kind of character that comes up that's working closely with Ralph Fiennes, who's kind of the dirt digger character. It's like whenever he comes up, something's going to go down. So that even though it was kind of a cycle type thing where it's like, yep, something's going to happen, you still get entertained by it. And it's still, even though, again, the mystery and suspense of who's going to be named Pope, for me was like, again, just very, very easy to predict and stuff. And that's, again, hand to God, talking about this being a conclave and everything. I did not cheat or anything, so I don't know if anyone's going out there say, oh, this is the most shocking film of the year as far as who gets elected Pope or anything. I haven't heard anybody talk about it that way. But again, it's still, despite of that, it gives you some surprises. And it does give you, especially in the last 10, 15 minutes or so, it does give you a little bit of a last second punch and a last second revelation that's like, oh, okay. And it's kind of off the board. It's something that feels a little like, oh, okay, I didn't think we were going to get here, but we got here kind of deal. So it's not going to be the most memorable movie ever for me. I'm probably leaning at an 8 out of 10 on this one. It's pretty good. Excelled by the great performances, and the writing is fairly good in it. Good cinematography, really good music. The music is pretty good in this. I know it's a relative front runner for the original score category as well at the Oscars, and yeah, I wouldn't be disappointed if it won or anything. I think it's a good score. Yeah, and I can actually see this one also for its potentially for production design. I was kind of iffy on that last time we talked. Now that I've seen it, it's like, oh yeah, they're not shooting in the Vatican. They actually have to create these sets and stuff and everything, and it's pretty good. And I've been a little reluctant to nominate, or predict, I should say, in the nominees, more contemporary production design. Something like Parasite. I just kept saying, no, it's not going to get in, and it got in. So I feel like this time, I'll give, once we get to the end here, I'll give some, I won't go category by category, but I'll give some updated predictions here and there as far as some changes I've made and stuff. So production design for Conclave, we'll see. We'll see what I ended up doing with that one. But yeah. Anyhow. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Oh, wait, John Lithgow's in it too. He's pretty good. He's not really, he's given enough to do, and his character, I think, is more important to the story than it is his importance to the story and stuff. They needed a bigger actor. It's not necessarily like Lithgow gives the performance of his life or anything. He's fine. I don't think I'd be shocked if we learn down the road that this is a role where it's okay, for just talking between him and Tucci, they're splitting votes or something. I just don't think that's the case. I think it's more or less clear to me that it is Tucci that gets the more Oscar-friendly roles and stuff. So yeah, but I think 8 out of 10. It's even though it does have a predictable element to it, where again I wasn't totally left in suspense at all about what the outcome was going to be. It was still a fun ride, and it was still one where you're still entertained by it, and it's not it's not really a thing of getting crippled by that obviousness there. All right. So I think that's all I got to say on that. Anything else saying about supporting actress here, I think? Not really. Felicity Jones did miss at Critics' Choice. And Brutalist, even though it is only showing in theaters just in the last week here, and it's obviously doing pretty well in its limited runs and everything, The fact that she has been a past nominee at almost every award show for Theory of Everything, I think she got in most everywhere for that, as I recall. I don't particularly see her struggling the rest of the season. Okay, let's move on to supporting actor here. My 5 here are going to be Clarence Macklin for Sing Sing, Guy Pearce for The Brutalist, Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain, Denzel Washington for Gladiator 2, and hello, I put in Yura Borzov for Anora. Guess what? The other film I saw was Anora. And this one, it's strange, because I have to admit, Anora was one I've been wanting to see and stuff too. And I have to admit, I hated the first act. Not necessarily the film, not the filmmaking, not the way it's shot or anything like that. The characters drove me nuts in the first act. All through that first roughly 45, 50 minutes until, the clear next step of the movie happens. I just got driven nuts by the characters, because it's like, and I get it, the movie is really, the two early characters we meet are Anora, or Annie as she's called in the film, and what the hell was his name? I have to remind myself here. It's only been a few days since I've seen it, but it's Vanya. Vanya, yeah, they call him Vanya. His name's Ivan in the movie. Just those two characters. I get they're young, they're kind of stupid, but they're kind of overly stupid, and you kind of can't help but just be like, okay, these characters are just way too fucking dumb. I mean, just palm to forehead type of things that they do in the first 45 minutes or so. It's like, it just didn't make any sense to me. And it's like, I get they're young, they're stupid, and they're supposed to be young and stupid, but it's just, nobody asks any like serious questions at any point. Both these characters just kind of go with the flow in a huge hyper accelerated way with their relationship and stuff. And it drove me nuts. I'm like, these characters are so freaking, it feels, especially the Vanya character, which plays much more into the plot later, but they feel so entitled to things, and they feel, it's like, it's just qualities that I just, in real life, just find so fucking annoying, and it makes me want to, hit something. Not them, but it makes me want to hit something. It's like, I just hate youngsters that do that just get so entitled with every goddamn thing in life. And these two, they had that quality to them, especially, again, the Vanya character, but with Annie, it's like, okay, you get into this situation where you're, I don't think it's a major spoiler, but when you're marrying this kid after you've met him in, screen time wise about 35 minutes ago and everything, it's like, yeah, that stuff. And the fact that she just kind of goes along with everything that happens so early and just everything. I mean, I don't think they, in the first, 20 minutes or so, which I was watching with family members around, so I had to kind of keep getting that 10-second skip button a couple times so that they weren't thinking I was watching pornography or something, because there is a lot of nudity in the first half as well, particularly that first 35-40 minutes or so I had to keep doing that. So not because I was appalled by the images or anything, just because I had some family around that could sneak, they could kind of see what I was watching and stuff, so I'm like, okay, I need to just be a little mindful of their sanity and stuff and everything. I don't know, just lack of a better word. Of their, anyways. But anyways, yeah, I just knew, I was like, okay, if it keeps going this way, I'm really going to be lost on why this is such a, beloved film this year. Why is this the Palme d'Or winner and stuff? And then we get into the second act, and then that's when the comedy, not that, there wasn't any laughs at all in the first, 40 minutes or so. Then we get to like the second act, which takes up a big chunk. And man, I was laughing my head off at some of the scenarios. It becomes kind of a Mad Caper type of comedy, almost like a, again, I like to say there was a movie, Mistress America, from almost 10 years ago now, 2015, that had that kind of big set piece in the second act, which bled into the third act, which kind of felt like a La Cage aux Folles, one of those French comedy films where it's like, it's just people in a room and things just keep getting revealed and things just keep happening. Anora has a second act that is very much like that. So I was right at home with that. I thought, okay, now this movie's rebounding. Now I get it. And yes, that second act is just a banger. It's so good. I just all of a sudden my entire thing just kind of spun around on its head. I'm like, okay, now I'm enjoying this, and hats off to Sean Baker for writing and directing this one, and really doing a great job here, I think, with getting that turn and showing that even though there is a little bit, and there's naturally some development, especially with the Annie character as she kind of realizes more and more what is going on and who Vanya is and who these other characters who get introduced are, one of them being Yura, who I'll talk a little bit more about, because again, even that one, as the second act was happening, it kind of took me a while. I'm like, okay, who's the supporting actor that everyone loves here? And it took me a while. I had to cheat and look up, okay, who does this guy Yura Borzov, who keeps getting into stuff, who does he play? Well, he plays that character? It's like, he's basically an extra for the second act, for parts of the second act. Once we get into the third act, and once we get into the kind of conclusion of the Mad Caper part, then he has the important stuff to do, which, I'll bring up, because I think it's kind of an interesting deal here. I'll talk more about that when we get to the actual predictions and stuff, and a little more in-depth on the supporting actor category here. But just wrapping up my thoughts on the movie, I do think, once it gets to that second act and the third act, and the kind of conclusion again with with what happens with Vanya, what happens with some of the other characters in his life and stuff, and the characters that get introduced that we've heard about, but then we finally meet. Some of those moments just made me smile and made me laugh really hard. In particular, there's his dad gets introduced and his mom. And the dad, I mean, once we kind of see the role the dad plays, because he's kind of talked up a lot, and then we see who actually wears the pants in the relationship, and his reaction to a couple things had me dying. I was laughing so hard. Oh, so good. And I really, really did like the second act and stuff. I wasn't crazy about the ending. It made sense and everything, and it felt like at times it did feel like the last bit, which is really, if it is broken up into acts, the first act is everything that leads up to the Mad Caper. The second act is the Mad Caper, which kind of ends with basically, a kind of end of the night thing into the next morning. That's kind of where the third act starts, more or less. But that third act, just with the screen time stuff, is really truncated compared to the second act. Second act kind of goes, and it does take up a big chunk of the nearly 2 hours and it's about two and a quarter hours that the movie runs for. But it's it did feel a little truncated, and once some of the characters are out and we're kind of left with Annie and the henchman character, the Yura character, it felt like, okay, the movie should be wrapped up about now, and it did feel like it did drag just a little bit through those parts. In particular, the last scene, the last setting and stuff, that felt really draggy to me, and I was kind of scratching my head a little bit at the outcome of it. So I, even though, yes, there's a lot of this movie that I did really enjoy, and it's definitely one, because I kind of talked with my folks afterwards. I'm like, I didn't, because it was I was watching on the computer. I wasn't watching it on like the big screen and stuff, because we watched Conclave on the big screen. This one I watched on the small screen. I'm like, well, if I'd known that, because I'd heard, it's, about a call girl, works in a strip club and everything. So I'm like, let me just, let me not put this on the big screen for everyone to see and everything, but... because usually they're not very comfortable with films with a lot of nudity and stuff. So I went ahead and kind of skipped that part of it, and I said, well, if I'd known that, we could have turned on the second and third act, and I could have caught you up on what happened. But that being said, I still think this is one I'll see again for sure at some point. I'm not like rushing to see it right away, but I would rush to see like the second act again for sure, to see that whole caper where it's like things keep happening, and it's like one trouble thing into another, one step forward, two steps behind kind of deal. That I thought very entertaining. The acting, everything, the ensemble through that's going to come up later. I hate to spoil it, but that will come up later, because I do think that is something that this voting body at SAG will be paying attention to. So, I think I'm closer to a 9 out of 10 on that one. Again, even though I had my troubles with the first act, I realized that you have to do it that way to get the maximum enjoyment out of the second act. Once you see, okay, the spoils of riches that these characters endure, just to be met with the hard, I'm trying to do that on purpose, sorry, hard reality of the second act and stuff and what happens and everything, I thought that was, it makes sense. it's, arguably in a rewatch, I think it will make that first act a little more enjoyable and a little less like, irritating for me, where I'm like, these people are stupid. They're stupid. I'm just, I was like really getting kind of almost visibly frustrated by the end of the first act. Not just because I had to keep hitting the skip button, but it was also just because I'm like, I don't know why I'm like supposed to like these characters. It's like, yeah. And definitely one of the two characters, Annie and Vanya, one of those you're supposed to not like by the end. But obviously we won't give that totally away. But otherwise, about the rest of the movie. Now, Yora, once we get to his stuff, yes, he is enjoyable. But again, he doesn't get a lot to do up until basically the last roughly half hour or so. Mikey Madison, though, as Annie, is terrific. Absolutely great. I don't think I've seen a bunch of big contenders yet in Best Actress this year. Let me remind myself here. Of the, not necessarily who I have in, if my button would work here. Hold on. My button's not working. Hang on. Where's my list at here? Here we go. I'm trying to think, like, who all I've seen. Well, I've seen, obviously, with Amelia Perez. Yes, I have seen her. That's Carla Sofia Gascon, who's, very good in that. But, I don't know. This one, it's really, for me, it's really close between these two. I think I probably enjoyed this movie a little bit more than Amelia Perez, but they're relatively close. They're both, kind of that high 8, low 9 in the scoring range for me, which, doesn't necessarily mean like one performance is better than the other. But yeah, with this one with Anora, I feel like it's, it is a dominating performance. It's like the movie doesn't really work if you don't like her enough, or if you don't, enjoy her acting enough and enjoy her character enough. If you're not willing to kind of go on the mad caper with her as the plot picks up and everything, then the movie will not work. So that is true. And at the same time, though, you can say that definitely about Amelia Perez. If you don't care about the Amelia Perez character in the movie, you don't care pre or post transition with that character, that movie will definitely not work for you. So, God, that is a tough argument. But yeah, she's definitely one of the better contenders from what I've seen so far in Best Actress and everything. And yeah, she is really great in the film. Edelstein as Vanya is fine. Again, plays the role as pat as you can, without doing way too much. But yeah, otherwise, yeah. Let's see if I can get this right here. A shout out to, let's see if I have pronounce it right here. Karin Karagulian and Vache Tovmasayan, something like that. Who are two of the other characters that are part of the mad dash kind of mad caper part of the plot. Them in particular, working with the rest of the cast and everything. I thought, yeah, if those parts, even though they're kind of thankless roles, if those aren't played well and they're not comedic enough, then absolutely the movie will not work as well. So. Yeah, so overall, great job on the casting by Sean Baker. And also, not being advertised much, he also edited the film. In particular, yeah, I do think the editing, and it's even early in the film in that first act. One thing I noticed was, dang, a lot of editing and a lot of quick cuts and everything. So yeah, I think this is maybe not a total shoe-in for best film editing, but certainly I think it's going to get in, I think. Not a shoe-in, but I'd say very likely to get nominated. So, yeah, I'm trying to think what else I want to talk about it. I guess, yeah, not too much. Enjoyable movie for sure, especially for me after the first act. But again, I think in rewatches, I think I'll enjoy that first act a little bit more once I know fully what's coming, and I think it will kind of click in. So this is... arguably, unlike some of Baker's other works, I think this is one that will get better with rewatches, or will be more attuned to rewatches. Versus something like, I'm just thinking like particularly the Florida Project was one of his other ones I've seen. That one, it's like I've seen once, I haven't gone back to see it again, but overall, I think I like that movie better than Anora, but this one is still pretty good. So yeah. So yeah, again, I'm thinking a light 9 out of 10 on that one, just barely enough to a 9 out of 10. Because again, I do think there are elements where, again, with casting especially and everything, if you don't get the right people in those roles, that movie does not work nearly as well as it does. So all right. So that being said, As far as Yora's stuff, though, I have him in here at SAG because I think Anora's going to arguably overperform at SAG compared to other movies. I don't think it's going to get like more than 3 nods, though. I think 3 is kind of the cap. There's not a clear like supporting actress candidate. I don't see it getting 2 nods in supporting actor or anything like that. But and it's certainly not. I don't think it's going to get in for stunts or anything. But yeah, I think it's a movie that that the SAG voting body will like, and it was again out early enough, premiered at Cannes, showed at a lot of the fall film festivals, and it's been now streaming and stuff. So I think it's visible enough and everything that enough voting members will see it. That being said, so because the thing is though, because his stuff is so late in the film, I always think of like the Michael Stuhlbarg conundrum, if you will, or the kind of problem with that. Because I always think like his role in the one I always go to, Call Me by Your Name, his role and his final speech in that movie that happens so late in the movie. It's so late in the movie. It's so phenomenal that I argued over, Armie Hammer and over maybe a few of the other contenders that year. I thought he should get in. If I were voting, he would be one of my nominees for supporting actor. Just for the last speech and stuff alone, it is so magnificent. But it was so late in the movie that I think the people that just didn't care enough for the movie, they'd already switched it off. They didn't care by that point in the acting branch, especially. I worry that it's a very similar problem for Yura, though. However, here's the thing. He's been getting in already, though. Critics' Choice and Golden Globes both gave him nods. So even though, yes, his stuff is late and everything, he does end up playing kind of a little bit of a crucial role once we get into some of that stuff in the last half hour or so of the movie. There's a few potentially really critical little shots. They're just little beat moments. They're not like, huge things that turn the plot or anything, but they're things that, they're just crucial moments that if you have a different actor in that role and a different spot there, I don't think they work as well as they did here. I have him in, though, again, just because I do think Anora is going to be widely enough seen, and the people that will be watching, I think, will enjoy it enough. They will not have that issue. I do worry about him at the Oscars, though, a little bit. We'll see about BAFTA. I always say wait till the BAFTA shortlist, which will be out just after the new year here next week. We'll take a look at who's in and who's out there. Otherwise, for the rest of the pack here, I think the other 4 arguably are... I want to say arguably are safe. Like Clarence Macklin with Sing Sing. Even though he missed the Globes just were not about Sing Sing. He got in a Critics' Choice after that and everything. So I don't see that one falling too far. Guy Pearce for Brutalist feels pretty good. Kieran Culkin for Real Pain. I have him a little lower here at SAG right now, just because I don't think this is going to be necessarily a huge SAG player. I could be dead wrong. It's basically the two-hander with him and Jesse Eisenberg, so I don't think it's a huge threat in ensemble. Even though it was out early enough and stuff, it did play, obviously, going back to January at Sundance and everything. I don't think it's going to be like a huge thing for SAG. Once we get to the acting branch at the Oscars, I can see them liking this movie a little bit more, but we'll see. And then Denzel gets in for everything at SAG. Nah, forget about him at BAFTA, but yeah, here at SAG, yes, I think Denzel will be a pretty good block here. Otherwise, for other contenders here, Edward Norton for Complete Unknown. The movie did just open. It's doing all right at the box office so far, but otherwise, yeah, Edward Norton's gotten in everywhere he could so far with Critics' Choice and Globes. Jeremy Strong got in at Critics' Choice, or did he miss both? I forgot already. Sorry. Which one? I thought he got in for... oh, no, he got in the Globes, not at the Globes, not for Critics' Choice. That's right. That sounds right. Am I getting that right? Yeah, for The Apprentice for Golden Globes. That's right. Yeah. So I think he's still in contention for The Apprentice. The fact that the Globes did go for it, okay, that does show that at least some of these awards body, viewers and stuff are watching it. We'll see. He has been a nominee, of course, in the past for his TV work. Not so much on the film side. I don't think that's like a total slam when it comes to SAG here or anything. But yeah, if he had been a previous Academy Award nominee, for example, I think that would help him maybe a little bit more. Stanley Tucci for Conclave. I don't, he's missed already. This, I have a little theory with him when we get to the Oscars. I feel like he's one of those misses everywhere, and then gets in at the Oscar type of moves. Since he is a past nominee and stuff, and it's a movie they're definitely going to be watching, that feels like the play. So I'm not predicting him here. Otherwise, I think Samuel L. Jackson for Piano Lessons really the only other option here. And even then, again, just because of the Netflix factor and everything, I don't think he's doing like extraordinarily well so far here in the season. Obviously, he hasn't gotten in at either the 2 televised award nominations so far either. Let's move on to Best Actress. My 5 here are Mikey Madison for Anora, Carla Sofia Gascon for Emilia Perez, Angelina Jolie for Marie, Nicole Kidman for Baby Girl, and Demi Moore for The Substance. That's my 5. I'm leaving out Cynthia Erivo, and I'm leaving out a couple of the other contenders. Now, for the ones I do have in, Nicole is a SAG favorite. She's been nominated, what are we up to, double digits now when you include her TV stuff? Let me just triple check that, because I thought we looked at this at one point, but maybe I've just forgotten it. I thought she had double-digit nominations here at SAG. We'll find out here. Oh, I think she does. If you count her ensemble nomination and in a couple of these performances, rather, 15. She's at 15. And if you don't, she's still over double digits. The SAGs absolutely 100% love Nicole Kidman. So I think she's in here at SAG. Could she fall off after this? Potentially. She did miss at Critics' Choice. It is a movie that critics have been kind of split on, so you could kind of explain that away. I'm still a little shaky about her at the Oscars as well. Baby Girl did just open here. A24 is also kind of overstuffed this year, it feels like, between Sing Sing and The Brutalist. So even though this is, particularly a category that neither of those two films are going to play in, I could see them maybe not getting as much advertising for her. I'm not sure how much campaigning she's doing, but I would guess it's at least a decent amount. It is open now. It did play at the Fall Film Festivals, so if some of these SAG voters did get into those, or if they were cognizant of those, I think enough of them will be aware enough of the film. If she misses here, then she's kind of in dire trouble, because pretty much, I'm trying to think here, I think every time she's been nominated here at SAG, she's gone on to be nominated at the Oscars, as I recall, at least. Let's see, I can back that up here really quick. Let me double check here. So she's been nominated at the Oscars for Moulin Rouge, Hours, Rabbit Hole, Lion, and Being the Ricardos. And unless my math mistakes me here, whoops, I went too far. All of those were nominees here at the SAG, with the exception of Moulin Rouge. She was nominated as an ensemble member, but she was not nominated for Best Actress. So one exception. Otherwise, every other time it's been a nominee at SAG, she gets nominated at the Oscars. So that being said, though, there are a couple times, like The Paperboy and Bombshell, where she was nominated here for a film that didn't get in at the Oscars. So that's worth noting as well. But yeah, overall, yeah, the SAGs do really, really like Nicole Kidman. And Demi Moore, with the comeback role, playing an actress in the film and stuff, and particularly an actress who's kind of looking back to her heyday and stuff, from what I understand from the movie and stuff, that feels like one that these voters are going to definitely gobble up on. But again, if she misses here, that's really not a great sign, and we'll see what BAFTA does with Substance. It'll be interesting, but I think for now, yeah, both her and Margaret Qualley I have both getting in. So yeah, I'm leaving out Cynthia Erivo for Wicked again. Once I see the movie, I might be swayed enough, because again, for a long time, we saw the Oscar odds here, particularly on Gold Derby. They were moving a lot for Ariana Grande, but they took a long time to move for Cynthia Erivo before she finally moved up in this race. Otherwise, Marianne Jean-Baptiste missed the Globe, got back in Critics' Choice. I suspect she'll get in at BAFTA. If she misses here at SAG, not the end of the world, I don't think. Missing that, if she gets out, doesn't get in at BAFTA, for sure if she doesn't make the short list, then she's really in trouble. If she gets in on the short list, misses at BAFTA, she's still in trouble, but, at least they'll at least acknowledge her there. Otherwise, I will list, just in case it happens, Amy Adams for Night Bitch. It is streaming on Hulu now and stuff, and Amy Adams is another SAG favorite, so if for whatever reason there ends up being an open spot here and they don't want to give it to any of these other ones, then she could sneak in. Pamela Anderson for Last Showgirl, she got nominated at the Globes. Didn't get in at Critics' Choice, but again, I don't think that was highly suspected or anything. But, again, kind of a comeback role. We could see SAG kind of take that weird turn they have before. I, particularly think of Sarah Silverman in, what was that one called? I Smile Back or something. They can take those weird turns, so maybe Pam Anderson, maybe. And then the only other one I can think of would be Kate Winslet for Lee, and I think that's one where it's like, again, if they just really like her and she does enough campaigning, then they'll get her a nod. And she did get in at the Golden Globes here a few weeks ago. Best Actor. Best Actor, my lineup here is Ralph Fiennes for Conclave, Adrian Brody for The Brutalist, Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing, Timothée Chalamet for A Complete Unknown, and Daniel Craig for Queer. Now, with this one, having seen the movie now with Conclave and Ralph Fiennes, I mean, he's still really good in it. That being said, Adrian Brody, though, for Brutalist, haven't obviously gotten to that one just yet, but one thing that we're going to have to really keep in mind through a lot of these early award ceremonies is don't forget, he's somebody who... And I'm going to, again, triple-check my math here, but as I recall, the year he won for The Pianist, he was nominated most everywhere for that. Yeah, let me make sure here. Nominated, obviously, the Oscars, yes. BAFTA, yes. Golden Globes, yes. Screen Actors Guild, yes. Critics' Choice was a thing? I can't remember if they were a thing even in 2002. Maybe they formed right after or something. But he's not listed here from my one thing here. So that could have been, kind of a different deal. But still, BAFTA nominated, didn't win. Golden Globe nominated, didn't win. The Screen Actors Guild nominated, didn't win. So he missed out at all those precursors there as far as the win, and went on to win the Oscars. So there is kind of a makeup kind of thing that could happen here. The Globes, I could totally see them going with The Brutalist over, going with him over Ralph Fiennes for The Brutalist. SAG, same deal. I could end up seeing Adrian Brody winning this thing, and everything. And if what I've heard, yeah, he is magnificent in the film. He's also very good. Otherwise, yeah, I think Coleman feels pretty good with Sing Sing. Timothée, I think, is probably going to get in. Daniel Craig, Queer isn't, again, making a huge splash with its limited run here in theaters, and he has been, nominated by the Globes, for example, before. He hasn't been nominated by SAG. He hasn't been nominated at the BAFTAs outside of his Casino Royale performance, as I recall. He's not like somebody who's consistently getting in. Obviously, he has never been nominated by the Oscars either. That's been brought up several times. And I think, again, this is one that screened early enough, was at the fall film festivals and everything, so I think he'll get in. If he does not get in, I would look out really for Jesse Eisenberg. I'd really look out for Sebastian Stan, for probably The Apprentice would be the one they would go with, because I don't think A Different Man is necessarily like a huge player on SAG's list. Let's see. Otherwise, I'm trying to think who else. Hugh Grant did get in at both Globes and Critics' Choice, but I just don't think that's going to be one that they're going to go with. I just don't see that scenario right now, but we'll see. But that's about it for Best Actor. Now for the ensemble nominees, my 5 here are, and this is going to be kind of tough because it's either I'm going to be really right or I'm going to be really wrong, and I'm going to leave off some very obvious ones that are in that I just am just not picking. Emilia Perez, The Brutalist, Conclave, Anora, and Saturday Night are my 5. So, defending these quick before we get to why are you not putting in blah, 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 blah. Emilia Perez, strong ensemble and everything, is a Netflix movie, feels like it could lead nominations, especially if it does get that stunt ensemble category, and if it gets the 3 in, plus stunt, plus ensemble, that's 5. That's 5 nominees for the film, which as of late, it used to be really tough to get to that number. It's become a little easier. If you look in the past few years, we've had a couple of years where it's like 2 films get 5 nominees, both. I think it was Everything Everywhere All at Once and Banshees of Inisherin both got 5 nominees the same year, which again is a hard feat here at SAG with only 6 competitive categories. So I have that. The Brutalist, I think, is our Best Picture winner right now. That could change, but you got to go with the strong SAG theory here that your Best Picture winner is at least nominated at SAG. There have been some exceptions in recent years, but it's been a long-standing tradition for a while that your nominee or your winner for Best Picture gets in at least for a possible winner here at SAG by being nominated for ensemble. So I have that. I think it's one. It does have likely 3 nominations, though. Again, I could see Felicity Jones slip out just because the category is so competitive. So they could end up with 3 or 4 nominations. I don't see it as a huge player like for stunt, so I don't think it'll get to that 5th nominee. Then I have Conclave. Yeah, this is definitely, it's a bigger ensemble and stuff. A lot of known names and everything. So yeah, Conclave feels relatively safe. Then I have Anora, and this is, if they're watching the movie, yes, then that should be an ensemble nominee. It feels to me a lot like Shape of Water, though, which, as you recall, missed at SAG for ensemble. It got all the individual nominations. It got, didn't it get 3 individual nominations? Again, I'll check my math here. Yeah, it got Richard Jenkins, it got Octavia Spencer, and it got Sally Hawkins all in, and missed for ensemble. It was just a weird thing where they liked some of their other movies that year. But was that the year of Mudbound? Yeah, I think that was Mudbound getting in over it. Now, Anora is not Netflix and stuff, but that being said, I think it's one of those that, again, if they're watching the movie, they'll notice it's an ensemble. It's a very noticeable ensemble when they're all working together and stuff, especially, again, that second Mad Act, the second act Mad Caper type of scenario there. As long as they're watching it, yes, then I think that one will get in, and it will cement that, yeah, this probably is one of the top 2 or 3 contenders for Best Picture. Now, with Saturday Night, I know it's had a very disappointing awards run so far. Only a couple, one nod from Golden Globes and a couple things from Critics' Choice, really the ensemble category there, getting nominated there really did keep me from removing it here. But even that being said, it does feel vulnerable here. It feels like, okay, when you actually watch the credits and see all the names listed, this will be the biggest ensemble of the 5, I believe, of the 5 I have in. But are they really, and it was an early release and everything, and it's streaming and stuff, but are enough people watching it? It did not make a dent at the box office at all. It has been kind of an underseen movie, and I, in my mind, at least underappreciated. I really still love it. It's still my favorite of the year. But, yeah, I just... I put it in because it does feel like one of those SAG picks, but we'll see. I could just be completely dead wrong about it. Wicked is one of the first ones. I kind of switched between that and Anora, and who was the other one? Brutalist I did not have in right away either. So Wicked was one I kind of bounced around with for a while. And yes, it does have a noticeable ensemble. It's not a huge ensemble, which isn't always like the biggest deal in the world. Like sometimes we see ensembles with like 3 or 4 actors, so it's not, not impossible. But as popular as the movie is, I don't know. I think if it was to get in, I think it would be off of popularity alone and stuff. I don't think it would necessarily be, like one that's like, it's not one of the top 2 or 3 for Best Picture, I don't think. Otherwise, Sing Sing. I had Sing Sing in for quite a while. And yes, it's an early release. Yes, it's a more diverse cast in there and stuff, which you'll notice in my selections here. There's a lot of whites and some Hispanic with Amelia Perez, obviously, too. But it's, it's not an extremely, diverse cast. And, usually SAG, they really thrive on being very diverse and stuff. And that could be one I could just totally, again, just be totally, missing on, and I could just be wrong about that one. But I had it in. I just don't have enough room for it in my 5. Otherwise, The Piano Lesson, I'm going to name here. Again, big Netflix movie, one of their bigger contenders at the start of the season. It felt like it has since really quieted down. I think they're putting full steam ahead into Amelia Perez, obviously. And with that being said, I do think it's still lurking as a contender here for ensemble. Not that it's going to get in, but I could see Daniel getting in and the ensemble making it in a weird, again, just because of the Netflix love thing. And again, another diverse cast option there. And then Complete Unknown. What about A Complete Unknown? That's another big ensemble, a lot of actors in it. And with Chalamet probably in for lead actor, Edward Norton kind of lurking and supporting actor as a possible nominee, that could end up surprising us with three total nominations. And let's not forget something like with musical and biopics about musicians and stuff. Bohemian Rhapsody did get a couple nominations here at SAG, including ensemble, back in 2018. So there is a little bit of precedent for that one to make a splash. And even then, I mentioned it early on, but what about Dune Part 2? I think Dune Part 2 could sneak in. The first one didn't get in for ensemble, but if the voters like it enough, it's out early enough, and it's been on Max, and it's been in theaters and everything for a while, so I wouldn't be totally shocked if they actually go for it here. I don't think they will for ensemble, but I'll name drop it, as it is also a likely Best Picture nominee as well. Okay, so obviously without going way too far into depth here for Best Picture changes, I really haven't done much. I haven't done a lot of acting changes either. I do. We can go into supporting actor here a little bit, because here at the Oscars, I dropped. Who did I drop? Oh boy, who did I have in there? Because I added Yora after having seen Anora. Yeah, so right now my 5 at the Oscars are Kieran Culkin, Guy Pearce, Denzel Washington, Yora Barzov, and Stanley Tucci. It's Clarence Macklin is who I dropped. And that one feels weird. It feels weird to drop him, but I just didn't know, because again, I've got this theory running with Stanley Tucci where he misses everywhere and gets in at the Oscars because he's a past nominee, because it's definitely a movie they're watching and everything. He feels like he could be that Jesse Plemons, that kind of role there, or even a Kathy Bates, someone who misses a lot of the award ceremony and ends up getting nominated at the end for a movie that they're watching and stuff. As a past, she was a past winner though, which does count for a little bit of something. Tucci was just a past nominee. But yeah, and I think overall it does reflect more that Sing Sing, it's going to be one that they're watching. I don't know if it's going to be as watched or as paid attention to as something like Anora, which is definitely more front of mind in the Best Picture race. The same goes for The Brutalist. A Real Pain, I think, again, is something that the acting branch is going to react well to. Sounds like it's because it is the two-hander. It's basically those two actors in it. Actors really, really like when you have, those small hander films, or if it's a solo performance, something like Castaway for Tom Hanks, for example. They really do like those type of performances and those type of movies overall. So, yeah. And then with Denzel, he's Denzel. I think he's going to get in. And Gladiator 2, I think it's being seen enough. Obviously, the tech categories are going to love it more than maybe some of these top categories. But, yeah, maybe he's one that falls out for some weird reason. I'm trying to think in recent memory if there's been a movie he's been, in contention for and then ends up missing at the Oscars. I just really can't think of any scenarios there. I remember, what was the Ismail Esquire, whatever one that one was. Robert Ismail Esquire, whatever the hell. I remember I had him in at one point. I took him out and he ended up getting nominated at the Oscars, I remember. But I don't think I predicted him to get in, though. So, yeah. So yeah, it's that's the first one I could think of where it's okay, has he ever not been nominated when he's been in contention? The answer is no, not that I can think of. Let's see. I'm trying to where other changes have I made? I think I mentioned in one video I did put Emilia Perez in for makeup and hairstyling, so I have that one as one of my 5, and it making the short list definitely helped there. In best song, I'm gonna go with the Elton John song for now. Sometimes it was the same nominee, I believe, who at one point was disqualified from a nomination after the voting happened because of their personal involvement with campaigning and stuff. I'm going to go with the Elton John song for now, so I did kick out another Sing Sing nomination there for Like a Bird. I kicked that one out. But, yeah, that feels like a kind of an open slot in that category and stuff, so I'm I think that one can get in. So I've got it for now. I could drop it. I could see something else getting in. Particularly the Sing Sing song could get in, because traditionally they do like having at least a couple Best Picture nominees get nominated in that category. But if there's room, I'm trying to think what other changes I've made. I don't think I've made much. Yeah, I don't think so. So, yeah, that's all I got for now. I think we'll break here, and we will be back definitely after the BAFTA shortlists come out. That's going to be the short list, long list, whatever the hell they call it. When those lists come out there in early January, we'll be back. We'll talk more about those nominations and potential nominations and stuff. And we'll see where we go from there. Otherwise, SAG nominations announced on January 8th, and that'll be just a little bit before the Oscars. BAFTA nominations are just 2 days before the Oscars, so yeah, we'll have to make a mad scramble after the BAFTA nominations and make a couple last-minute changes based on what does well and what does not do well there. So, all right, I think that's all I got for now, so we'll be back in the new year.